Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Jerry Ford, and we are going to play a little bit of Counter-Strike Global Offensive. We're probably not going to get into a competitive match, but we're going to play around with some deathmatch and continue to test these YouTube stream settings. I'm kind of excited. They just changed their YouTube stream settings so that it works a little bit more like Twitch. Rather than setting a startup time, as soon as I hit go on my encoder, it activates the live stream. Now, there are upsides and downsides to this. First and foremost, I kind of liked setting up a specific time, so that way, when I do get a massive following of viewers, there will be kind of like an announcement built in. But you can still do that, so you know it's 6 one way, half dozen the other. I like having the flexibility while still being able to set up specified streams at specified times. Speaking of specified things at specified times, we're going to try to get to a weekly game with a 5-man.
Let's roll.
But that all depends on people's schedules and how things work. Oh, good, Dust 2. I love you, Dust 2. I love you, Dust 2. Alright. Oh wow, match start.
Hey guys.
Oh, that guy's mic sounds awful. I'm going to play around with the... So I want to talk to you guys briefly about the sawed-off. The sawed-off gets a really bad rep as a shotgun. Because, let's face it, there's a lot about it not to like. I mean, you can just look at my crosshairs and see how terrible the accuracy is. And it's true of all the shotguns. This is far and away the worst in terms of accuracy. Damage is pretty good. Damage is higher than you might anticipate. But the thing about it that's worthwhile, the thing that makes the sawed-off decent, at least in deathmatch, is that the sawed-off suffers the least from any shotgun. I'll switch to a bonus roll just to replenish my health.
Oh, you what?
That's waste. That scared me. I was talking and I got distracted. Let me think. I gotta get back to my sawed-off. Oh, I missed that one. Well, I got my sawed-off now. Anyways, so the issue with the sawed-off is not... The accuracy is bad, right? We agree on that.
Fucking auto. You know you're bad when...
But at very close range...
Spawned in with it.
Helps if I actually hit him. As I was saying, it suffers relatively little from the movement penalty. Oh, shoot. This is not a weapon that you're going to use at medium to long range. If I got any damage there on that spinny guy, I would be very surprised. The reason that newer players tend to like it is because it seems like a great gun when you get a nice hit up close. So, for example, this guy's going to be distracted. Ah! It's not ready for that one. So as you watch me use it, anything in a relatively close range, it becomes a very effective gun. You can aim at their center of mass and have them, You can aim at their center of mass and get a relatively decent pattern. Oh, it's the bonus weapon. Serpentine, serpentine. So, what's the purpose of the sawed-off shotgun? What purpose does it serve in the game? Well, I'll be honest. It is not my own people. My mouse sensitivity, I think. Why would you ever use this gun in competitive? And the answer is that it plays very differently than your average shotgun. Your average shotgun, the best tactic is to duck in and out of cover while pumping at bad guys. With the sawed-off, it's much better to run straight at your opponent. It's better to run straight at your opponent without stopping or without changing your movement. It is a straight-on, full-bore, charging weapon. This guy's gonna try to help me. You can pop in and out of cover like this, but it's not actually going to help the accuracy very much. Let me show you this. Okay, against this wall, look at that grouping. Okay, not great. Now watch as I move and fire. It's actually almost the same. There's little to no penalty for your accuracy while moving with this gun, which is unique. Yep, there's a lot of SMGs that have that same kind of pattern where they suffer minimally from recoil issues. But as far as shotguns, I think this is the only one that I know of that's really an effective charging weapon. Now, charging like that obviously can put you at a major disadvantage if you aren't careful. You're less evasive because you're not strafe stepping. It's going to be much easier to shoot you. And you're really ineffective with the gun at any kind of range.
Nice shot, my friend.
So, I was asking the question, why would you ever use this? What's the purpose of the gun? If you're in competitive, you're in a situation where you're very low on money. You're in a situation where you're very low on money, and you know you're going to be interacting with the enemy at corners, someplace where they are not going to have the range. Is Bot Chat a real bot? Oh, that's embarrassing.
Very good.
If you know that range is not going to be an issue,
Nice shot.
it can be used to good effect. What is jumping accuracy like? I guess it's kind of similar. This one would probably be a decent gun to use at those locations in the game where you can jump out your enemies, like kind of jump scouting. But again, you know, it's a victim of range. So places where you could potentially jump. Shoddy. Somebody's behind me. It's a teammate.
Very good.
So, like, I could play it here. Oh! If only he hadn't chucked me there. Getting a little bit of lag going on.
Very good shot. Nice shot, my friend.
Not a game I want to play. I'll let him take him out. That's what you get for not looking behind you. Jumping is useless. But there's a bad guy down here. So if you've been watching my recent games, you've been seeing me playing with this. Probably you've been saying to yourself, why the hell would he do that? That is the worst gun ever. In a lot of ways, yes, it is indeed the worst shotgun. there are far better options. You can get better range from Nova. If you are aiming correctly for the head with the Nova, it can be almost as effective even when moving. But it's still not as move friendly as the sawed-off, which is why I've got a sweet spot for this unloved gun. Oh, absolutely on the left. Oh, that was weird. Didn't hear the sound or the fall. Yeah, weird lag. Almost spin. I feel like I've played with spinning before. As you can see from my deathmatch score, it's not the best gun to use. A lot of times when I play with it in game, what I'll do is I'll pair it with a Deagle. So that way I've got at least a little bit of range. But it's not a weapon to use unless you are being absolutely silly. So 30 and 24, not too bad considering I'm using a gun that folks would consider to be absolutely awful. Let's play a game with me using the Nova. We can kind of compare that. Now again, as you noticed, I did not do any kind of strafing. I mean, I did a little bit of strafing, but it wasn't the pop out of cover, fire a shot, pop back into cover kind of strafing. It was this very just slightly move to the side, maybe for a better angle. Warm up. I hear somebody. Come on. Alright, Nova time. So we'll take a look at this gun. It's got a much more effective range. If I stand still, you can see the grouping's still a little bit rough, but each individual pellet, I think, does more damage. Ow. I don't even know what gun he was using. Now you see, if that was a, if that had been sawed off, that shot would have killed. I find with the Nova, I'm having to hit a few more times for it to be really effective. Come on, Oppie. So if you don't hit right in the head, if you don't get a headshot with this gun, it's not going to be not going to be nearly as effective as your hip shots with the sawed-off. Sawed-off, you get a body shot, it's pretty solidly a kill. Ow, 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 ow. Wait for this. Ow, 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 ow. Man, he was patient. MP9 is another interesting gun that you see people use on save rounds. Let's grab this real fast. MP9 has a couple things going for it that you wouldn't necessarily expect from an SMG. Like, it's got the best jumping accuracy of any SMG, which is inherently funny. So you can do these bunny hop attacks that are actually kind of funny. Which is, I mean, it is a tactic. It's got pretty crap damage. It's kind of almost made up by the very good rate of fire. But again, it's not any kind of It's not any kind of a gun that you're gonna want to. Wow, that took way longer than I should have. I had a hard time getting the beat up to his head. I wonder what the deal was there. Did somebody spawn here? I guess not. MP7 gets a lot of compliments, being the most expensive SMG, second only to the P90. It's got some merits. Like I said, it's kind of the closest to the rifles.
Unreal
in a
somehow
lot of
headshots
respects.
you're getting, buddy.
Love it. Let's test this guy on the jumping. We'll wait for a friend to come over here.
Great hit.
Bad weapon switch. Did I lose my top? I lost my top spot. That's sad. I need to be better at that. Really? That guy took way more shots than he should have.
It's so obvious, guys. Little beaner ass nigga.
I don't know what that guy's saying. Oh, he's just saying racist things.
Very good shot.
Little beaner.
So,
Good one.
yeah, you know, I'm still in,
Dude, I'm joking. You're
Sawed
only
up
15
mode.
and 12. You're not good. You're a dumbass.
I need to,
Stupid ass little nigga.
Bro, chill.
Yeah, muted.
these
I'm an
kinds of
asshole,
guns
nigga,
work
that's
best
why.
when you pop out of cover,
Are you
take a
high?
shot, and then pop back in. So,
You sound high as fuck.
which, even though it might not
what's
seem
the
like
point?
it, in deathmatch, competitive,
I
they
am
are
thinking.
it makes them a much better gun. My voice is off.
Okay.
1 second. Voice
It
and
just doesn't change the point that you still affect.
0. There we go. Problem solved. I'll just make sure I remember to turn that back on. So like this guy here. He's coming up on me, obviously. Now there's a lot of arguments that shotgun should be avoided on terrorist. Because for CT you can control the distance a lot better than you could as a terrorist. Because you are in a defensive position. Let's go down to the mag
Very
7.
good shot.
Yeah, let's not play around with mag 7. Maybe I can still get it. There we go. Mag 7's a defensive gun. Being magazine fed, it's faster to reload, but you lose out on that ability to fire in between loading shells. Which, you know, in a clutch situation can actually be pretty important. Because you might be low on ammo and reloading when somebody pushes you. Come on, give me your... I'll have to reload.
Great hit.
7.6.
Very good shot.
The Green Knight. Take that guy's ankles. Am I lagging out? What's going on here? What's my ping? 31, that's not bad. What's the problem here? I wonder.
Very good shot. Hacked out.
Yeah, I'm just getting some laggy bits here. Super frustrating. What's that base? Oops. So the moral of the story here is that shotguns, even the less favored ones, do have their use, even in competitive play.
Great hit.
Assuming that you're using the appropriate tactics. If you're just buying them and then playing it, trying to play with a rifle, you're obviously going to have a pretty nasty day.
Good one.
You've got to use them in situations where you can dictate the range. For almost all shotguns, you shouldn't just charge. Rather, you should use cover, pop in and out of cover to. You should use cover to pop in and out of dangerous situations because of your extremely slow rate of fire.
שיחקת אותה.
Well, thank you, teammates. Oh, there's one more up there. They are not weapons that you should spend all your time getting good with. They're situational. Think of Counter-Strike as an old house that you've got to fix. If you've got an old house that you've got to fix up, then you can't just get by with a hammer or with a screwdriver. Rather, you need a collection of tools to fix any kind of things that might break, whether it's the stove or the plumbing. You can't. Having one or two tools that work really well, that you're really skilled with, is great, but is not going to make you that effective and competitive. You need to have lots of different tools at your disposal. You have to be good with rifles. You should have some experience with sniper rifles. You should have some of these overlooked. You should have great pistol skills. You should know how to effectively use both the starter pistols for terrorist and CT. And to be really effective, you have to have some of these peripheral skills. Not as necessary. You can do fine in CS:GO without having decent shotgun skills. However, by having those, that gives you more options in scenarios where you might have to save. And it's a great way to throw off your enemy. By constantly changing up the speeds with which you play, creating scenarios that are constantly changing makes it very difficult for the enemy to predict how you're going to play. As they try different tactics, if you're switching things up, they're going to fail over and over and over again. I've been in a lot of games, a lot of comeback situations. On both sides, I've both been the team that has had the comeback, and I've been part of the team that has was winning strongly and then had the opposing team turn around and win. And a lot of times, the reason for the comeback is because the team that's coming back has figured out how to deal with the other team's strategies. Having one set strategy is only going to get you so far. And a perfect example, and I know I'm just ranting on this, I know I've got to get going here fairly quickly, but a friend and I started playing StarCraft. This was before the first expansion even came out, so it was several years ago. And we decided that we were going to do a team match. We were gonna queue up as for 2v2s. And it's been a while since I played this, so I apologize right now if I'm getting the nomenclature wrong, because I am not a StarCraft expert. But so we were playing StarCraft 2, And we played a couple games, and we decided, you know what, let's get a strategy. So we sat down and we figured out how to do a fairly early push. It's an almost all-in kind of a push at a certain point in the game, where he would play Zerg and I would play Protoss, and it was very effective. We moved up through the ranks. We moved up through the silver ranks and into the gold ranks, and we hit, I forget what the rank levels are, but we gotten just into like middle gold, and all of a sudden our strategy just stopped working. We'd win maybe 1 out of 5 or 6 matches. As soon as we got to that level, we needed a repertoire of skills, a repertoire of tactics, a repertoire of strategies. And we needed to know how to recover from such a push if it failed. And we just didn't have that. And we just fell apart. It was like hitting a wall at 90 miles an hour. It was surprising how fast we were progressing through the ranks, and all of a sudden to just stop dead in our tracks. And CSGO is kind of the same way, except it's a little bit less obvious because each game is, 31 rounds, or 30 rounds. Yeah, 30 rounds. Is up to 30 rounds. So it might not be as obvious to you in the game while you're playing that you're suffering from a lack of variety in your strategies. Because sometimes, even though you're using the same strategy over and over and over again, sometimes you might get a round or two, or you might get some decent picks on a particular round, and you'll feel like, wow, this strategy is working, our strategy's fine, they're just out shooting us. But when you go back and you look at it later, you realize your team's doing the same thing over and over again, and they're winning most of the rounds because they figured out how to beat that. You have to be able to change up your strategy to throw the other team off. If you throw off their flow, throw off their groove, make them guess, second guess their own strategies and try other things, keeps them on the defensive, strategically speaking, and gives you an upper hand. And sometimes getting some of those early picks can really help. So, don't be afraid of the shotgun rush, of doing a shotgun rush in competitive. Don't do it all the time. As a matter of fact, lately when I've been playing, I've been doing it too much. But every once in a while, gosh, that's a great way to throw off your opponents. So, thank you all so very much for watching. I may be on later this evening. We'll have to kind of wait and see on that one. But again, as always, think of me this upcoming election, and have a great day.